Ogre Battle, March of the Black Queen for Super Nintendo. As I said before, over a year ago now, we will be examining the tactical RPGs of Yasumi Matsuno, starting at his days working for Quest with Ogre Battle, March of the Black Queen for SNES. I'm trying to review these all before Unsung Story comes out. You think I'll make it?
What year is this?
Imperial year 24. Here, on the frontiers of Shalom, the last survivors of the Knights of Sonoma were planning the final townland.
First order of business. Is Ogre Battle even really a tactical RPG? It doesn't really fit my personal definition, but either way, this game and series is so important to the lineage of what I hold as the pinnacle of TRPGs, Final Fantasy Tactics, that we can't not explore it. With Ogre Battle, we see the start of a long collaboration with a few key players. On the music front, Hitachi Sakamoto, the patron saint of tactical RPG scores, along with Masaharu Iwata, who did work with Matsuno when he was a planner for Conquest of the Crystal Palace on the NES. And last, but not least, actually maybe least, Hayato Matsuo, who would go on to work with Matsuno one more time with Final Fantasy XII. Another Matsuno mainstay is Akihiko Yoshida. Here he helms character and tarot card design. He has worked on every Matsuno-directed project except for Crimson Shroud and Unsung Story. But hey, there's still time. The rest of the art direction rested on Hiroshi Minagawa, who like Yoshida would reprise his art direction role on every Matsuno-directed game, sans Crimson Shroud and Unsung Story. Yoshida is also known for doing the main character designs for the Bravely series. We might as well get the Queen trivia out of the way. Both Ogre Battle and March of the Black Queen are Queen songs. There are at least two other Queen song references, with one of the areas being the Ryan Sea, an allusion to the seven seas of Rye, and a city named Bright Rock, in the same vein as Brighton Rock. Props to anybody who got that rock pun. I wanna rock! If you wait on the start screen long enough or read the game manual, you'll find out that this game is Ogre Battle Saga Episode 5. Yes, Matsuno is an admitted Star Wars fan. You are a lord mounting a rebellion, along with the last vestiges of the Zenobian survivors against the power couple of the titular Black Queen Endura and Rashidi, her powerful wizard husband. The game falls under the strategy RPG or self-appointed title of Sim RPG more than tactical RPG. And once you see how the game plays, I think the reason for these distinctions will become more clear. Where to start? Most of this video will be an attempt to demystify the babushka doll as a system Matsuno has loaded into this, his first directed game if Wikipedia is to be believed. The game has so many moving parts, and they're moving in real time, which makes it even more difficult, so we'll break down the systems one by one to make this easier to digest. Cue the Matsuno meter. Let's see how many systems we can count. We're introduced to the world by Warren. Remember that name when we do the Tactics Ogre episode. He does a tarot reading on you, and that determines the characteristics of your lord. Movement. Ding! Instead of the usual TRPG isometrical battlefield, isometrical? Is that a word? Instead of the usual TRPG isometric battlefield traversed by tiles floating in the void, you have somewhat generic-looking flat battlefields comprised of different terrain like plains, mountains, water, and snow. Once you deploy a team, you use the flag icon to specify their destination. The team's AI will then take over and use the most efficient routes to traverse the battlefield. Each team has a terrain type, determined by the types of unit the team is comprised of. For example, a team with 2 Griffins and a Beastmaster will be a high sky movement type, or a team of mostly mermaids will be a water terrain type. Most of the squads you start out with are either plain types or mountain types. This not only gives you an idea on what terrain they can travel on best, but also indicates what type of terrain they fight best on. There are a few different objectives on each map. The main objective is to defeat the boss, which will be highlighted at the start of each map. You could blitz the boss at the beginning, but unless you defeat the boss quickly, you could just be sending your troops into an unwinnable battle. The safer way is to send troops out to liberate the towns first. Your army needs money, and liberating towns is how you keep your funds coming. There's a timer. Ding! There's a timer that goes off at noon, cue the sundial, that calculates how much money you've made from occupied towns, subtracted by how much it will take to keep your troops on the field. Some towns also hold shops with curatives and other useful items. Each time you liberate a town, you have the opportunity to pull a tarot card. Ding! These tarot cards each have their own effect, like raising the strength of the party members, or they can be negative, lowering stats as well. Some of their effects we'll have to wait to get into. Whether or not you get a tarot card, the villagers that have been liberated will then give you some information. The villagers can give you clues to secret treasure, hidden towns, and boss weaknesses, so it's worth your time. On your way to the boss and liberating towns, your gold units will encounter the enemy's silver units. A fight occurs when two opposing units come within a certain proximity of each other. If both of the units are moving, the fight occurs on the terrain in the middle, equidistant from both parties. If one unit is moving and one is stationary when the fight ensues, then it will take place on the terrain of the stationary unit. Unlike a traditional tactical RPG, you don't have direct control over your individual units in battle. You can hit the A button to stop the combat between attacks and direct your soldiers on which types of unit to target: weak, strong, best, and leader. And good luck trying to figure out what each of those means without having the game manual. Give up? Okay, I'll tell you. Leader is the only intuitive one, having your team target the leader of the opposing side. The leader is denoted by the cross symbol near the HP bar. There's lots of reasons to prioritize the leaders. We won't get into the more complicated reasons yet, but as you might have guessed it acts as cutting the head off the enemy squad. So much so that once you've defeated the leader, the sprite for that squad turns into a crawling skull. Strong targets the unit with the most HP, weak the least HP, and best targets the unit that current attacking unit will be most effective against. Aside from that, user control during the fight includes an option to retreat from the battle, and the use of the tarot cards you've collected thus far. Each one does something different. At first, it's difficult to figure out what they do. That's if you, like me, didn't read the manual until about 5 hours in, and didn't realize that on the world map, there's a special tarot menu that shows you all of the cards you have, and then if you press select, the game will actually tell you what they do. Pro tip. Some are purely offensive, some cause the enemy to retreat, go to sleep, flee, except for the leader, and provide temporary stat buffs. Knowing when to hold them and when to fold them is crucial, but you can only hold on to so many at one time, so hoarding them has its limits. So what systems do we have so far? A real-time strategy movement, team terrain types. Oops, that's 2. Town liberation goth, that's the money of the game. Resource management. 3. Tarot collection and in-battle use. 4. Targeting prioritization in battle switching. Maybe 5. We don't have to go super in-depth into it because it works kind of the way you would assume, but there are some elemental weaknesses in the game, though not too explicit within the game. 6. In combat, there's a front row / back row dynamic not too unlike Final Fantasy, and which row a unit is in determines what attack they do and how many times during a battle they do it. Front row usually doing more attacks, but only to single targets in the opposite front row mostly. If the front row on the opposing side has been partially wiped out, then the back row enemies can be hit. The positioning again isn't explicitly gone into in the game, but it seems that your units all the way to the left have a hard time or reticence to attack the opposing team on that team's right, and vice versa. Only when all the units in front of them are dead do they start attacking out of their normal range. It's a hard thing to explain. At first it just seems like the units aren't listening to your leader or whatever commands, but when you play it long enough, you start to understand which units can hit certain other units. I don't know what to even call that system, but 7? And the battle can end without a single death on each side. The battle ends if one side is completely wiped out, or, and more likely, if a certain number of turns goes by, and everybody is attacked. If one side isn't completely wiped out, then the side that's dealt the most damage is the winner. The winner gets to stay on its spot on the map, but the loser is propelled backwards in the direction it was traveling before the battle. We haven't even gotten into the customization aspect of the game. 8. There's really not equipment customization beyond equipping one item to a single unit at a time to increase stats. The real customization comes from the formations within the unit. So as mentioned before, there's a front and back row, but there's a hard limit on how many individual units can be in one squad. The max is 5 if they're all small units. There are 2 different sizes a unit can be. A big unit takes up the place of 2 small units, so you can have 2 big units and a small, 3 smalls and 1 big, or any combination that doesn't add up to more than 5 altogether. Among the classes that can comprise your parties are Amazons, think archers, beastmasters, soldiers, mermaids, angels, clerics, which are healers, wizards, and many more. When certain level requirements are met, they can upgrade their job class to more powerful versions or altogether different jobs. 9. Do you think we're done? We haven't even started. This game has at least 13 different endings based on the tarot cards. The main system, 10. The main system that Ogre Battle is known for is the alignment system, a system that conceptually makes sense, but in practice seems like the most ingenious and yet cruelest difficulty system for those who embark on the quest for the best ending. The alignment system is again one of those things that if you didn't read the manual until many hours into the game, you might not even know existed. There are a few indicators of the system at work, but not many. The most obvious indicator is your reputation bar, which is a meter under the sun/moon icon that goes down if your reputation goes down. And you guessed it, goes up if your reputation goes up. And if you thought defeating the boss and killing as many enemy units as possible on the way was the ticket to high reputation, well, hot dog, you're in for a shock. Do you think liberating a town from the evil empire is good? It could be, or it could be bad, depending on the alignment of your units. Each unit has an alignment rating. Alignment can go up or down from tarot cards, but here are some of the other main reasons that it fluctuates. Killing a healer will always cause your alignment to go down. Beating a unit with a lower level than you will make it go down. Killing off the remainder of a unit that's retreating after its leader has been defeated, you guessed it, will make it go down. Keeping a high alignment is difficult, and keeping your reputation when your units have low alignment is next to impossible. So if you start off on the dark side, it's very hard to come back, which I learned after I read the manual, as I mentioned before, about 5 hours in. I really tried. The key is to use your high alignment units to liberate the town. You don't want to use your low-down, dirty mercenaries with low alignment to liberate the towns. They need to operate in the shadows, so your future subjects don't see them. Which gets me into kind of a morality tizzy about the real logic behind the alignment system. To me, using low alignment units in that kind of underhanded way seems more disingenuous. So really it's less a morality meter and more about, as it does specify, reputation. It's not about how good you are, but how good you appear to be to the public. One of the things that drops your reputation quickly is letting your freshly liberated towns get recaptured by the Empire. You have to liberate the towns with high alignment units, make sure not to overlevel those units, because if they're too high level, they'll lose alignment when they kill enemy units, and then have low alignment units pick up the rear, making sure none of the towns are recaptured. There's also a time aspect, not just the built-in system of lowering your reputation from discouraging over-leveling, therefore losing alignment points, but your reputation also goes down over time naturally. So no lollygagging. Liberate with high align, then garrison with low align, keep going until you beat the boss. That's the simple version of Ogre Battle. Only took me about 4 pages to get there. If that's all there was to getting the good ending, then I would feel confident that on my next playthrough I could do it. But of course, it's not that easy. There are also interactions that have to happen between special characters in the game at certain points, and secret items that need to be collected. And if you miss any one of those characters, then it's like a trading quest that can't be completed. So you might have guessed it, I got the bad ending. I think even maybe the worst ending. I was, spoiler alert, assassinated a year after liberating the continent. Here's how I feel about the game. There's a reason I was putting it off for a year. Part of it was wanting to play it on a real cartridge, but mostly it's an intimidating game. I hit my head against it a few times on emulators back in the day and couldn't get past the second level, but once I opened myself up to it and let Matsuno come inside me,
I was just a boy. I saw him in my dreams. He said he wanted to play. He opened me, and I invited him, and he came inside me.
He went inside?
He made me do things. Terrible things. He said he wanted lives.
Okay, enough of that. I have a deep respect for the game. If you play the game like the low alignment scum I did, it's not even really that difficult, but the idea that there's this insane replay value and all these opaque secrets hidden within this game, well, in this day and age, I can't really appreciate that for lack of time. I can imagine that in its time, this would have been my favorite game. Now though, knowing Final Fantasy Tactics exists, it's not as friendly as an experience. Tactics visually has a lot more going on, story-wise too, musically. All the things I liked about Ogre Battle matured and got better with Tactics Ogre and then ultimately Final Fantasy Tactics. And while I think the gameplay is too much an apple and oranges thing, I think going to a smaller tactical scale helps the future games. You get a better sense of place in Tactics Ogre and FFT. The dioramas are perfect little sets for the battles, but also for story scenes. Instead of the talking dialogue heads in Ogre Battle, you have scenes where characters can actually emote and interact in a more meaningful way. What I'm really looking forward to now that I have Ogre Battle for context is to re-explore Tactics Ogre, Let Us Cling Together, and the differences between its PS1 and PSP releases. I've heard a reference many a time before that Matsuno was influenced by the Yugoslav wars. Most say Balkans, but that would be confusing and could get you mixed up with the First and Second Balkans War in the early 1900s, as opposed to the ones in the 1990s. The only reference I've found so far is in a translated interview shortly after the launch of the SNES version of Tactics Ogre, where he talks about how people are more receptive to his complex war narrative in Tactics Ogre because of the Yugoslav conflict's web of multi-ethnic tensions. So to me that reads more as serendipity, not direct influence, especially since he responded like this when questioned about the Ogre Battle saga. Matsuno. Yeah, I already knew on the plot level that there were 8 chapters to the basic story. I brought the plans and ideas for this world with me when I joined Quest, which was in 1989. I said it could be the basis for a variety of different games. We created Ogre Battle in the summer of 1991. If anyone can link me to any statements he's made that say the Yugoslav wars were a direct influence, I would be very interested. I would assume they couldn't have been an influence for Ogre Battle, but could have been more so on the Tactics Ogre side. We'll be exploring the Matsuno Arc for the next few episodes of the Tactical RPG Odyssey, so we have some time for retractions and corrections. Interesting side note, the game credits Quest, but it also credits Imagineer on the title screen, which I've never seen brought up before. Upon further research on their Japanese website that details their history, they brought over SimCity to Japan for PCs and other Sim brand games to the Super Nintendo, as well as the game Populous. So I guess Ogre Battle really is a Sim RPG. But no, Ogre Battle does have a certain PC feel similar to early SimCity with a top-down perspective and similar cursor movement. On the next episode of the Tactical RPG Odyssey. Tactics Ogre, Let Us Cling Together.